Tender and more to be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzae, Muzimu Mokuro. We give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodi, African power and African liberation for all African people. Greetings, brothers and sisters, to just another session of some media and news geopolitical analysis. What has taken place recently is that within the last 24 hours, President William Ruto of Kenya has arrived in the United States of America to meet with President Joe Biden. And this particular meeting and his trip to the US of A is just preceding the deployment of 1,000 Kenyan troops to the island of Haiti, brothers and sisters, supposedly to tackle the issue of so-called gangs. And yes, we say so-called gangs because, as we have explained in previous installments and shows in our We Stand With Haiti series, the term gangs is really a euphemism designed to mask the true nature of these military formations, these paramilitary formations, and their connection to the oligarchs in Haiti as well as the political establishment in Haiti. And so we refer to them as paramilitary death squads, brothers and sisters. Yes, indeed, paramilitary death squads in the pocket of the oligarchy in Haiti and the political establishment in Haiti. However, in today's session, what we want to do is engage in some analysis of what took place at the press conference that was held at the White House with President Ruto and President Biden. So I'm going to share a few clips with you and engage in some discussion around the statements that were made. And we're going to begin with an aspect of the opening statement and sentiments expressed by President Joe Biden.
I'm proud to announce we're working with Congress to designate Kenya a major non-NATO ally. That's a fulfillment of years of collaboration. Our joint counterterrorism operations have degraded ISIS and Al-Shabaab across East Africa. Our mutual support for Ukraine and has rallied the world to stand behind the UN Charter. And our work together on Haiti is helping pave the way to reduce instability and insecurity. And I want to thank you, Mr. President, and Kenya's leadership for multinational security support mission in Haiti. Our new global partnership is going to build on all this progress. We're going to meet new challenges with more resources. And it's going to strengthen the security of our countries and our countries around the world. Second, we're deepening our economic cooperation. Both President Ruto and I have focused on growing economies, and growing them from the bottom up, the middle out, the bottom up, and when that happens, everybody does well, not the top down. Because when the middle class does well, the poor have a ladder up, and the wealthy still do very well. That's true in Kenya, that's true in America, and that's true around the world. Right now, many countries, debt stands in the way of growth. Too many nations are forced to make a choice between development and debt, between investing in their people and paying back their creditors. So today we're launching what we're calling the Nairobi, Washington Vision. And this initiative is going to bring together international financial institutions and nations from all around the world to mobilize more resources for countries saddled with debt, to open more opportunities to the private sector financing, and to promote transparent, sustainable, and affordable lending practices. These are big goals. It's going to take time to see lasting progress, but we're providing $250 million, the United States is, to the World Bank in a crisis response window. In the coming weeks, the United States is going to make an additional $21 billion available to the International Monetary Fund.
All right, so we see two central issues here, brothers and sisters, in terms of the statement that President Joe Biden has just made. First of all, he has announced that he is trying to encourage Congress to make Kenya a major non-NATO ally. Yeah, and for explanation's sake, we have to understand that this is actually an official designation. Yeah, this is an official designation. A non-NATO ally a major non-NATO ally is a designation given by the United States government to countries that have strategic working relationships with the U.S. Armed Forces while not being members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, which is a military pact basically, which is dominated and controlled by the USA and the Western world, that requires them to come to each other's aid in relation to military matters. While the status does not automatically constitute a mutual defense pact, as would be the case through NATO membership, with the United States, it does confer a variety of military and financial advantages that are otherwise unobtainable by non-NATO countries. There are currently 19 major non-NATO allies across 4 continents, 11 in Asia, 3 in Africa, 3 in South America, and 2 in Oceania, brothers and sisters. The 3 in Africa is now Kenya, Tunisia, and I believe Egypt, brothers and sisters. Yeah, and so that is what a major non-NATO ally is, and you can see, what benefits a nation would, be open to in relation to being a major non-NATO ally. It seems that Kenya is positioning itself to be such in relation to the financial and other benefits that it could incur from the American government, brothers and sisters. Yeah, that's point number 1. Point number 2 is this dichotomy, yes, that President Joe Biden has outlined in terms of nations being able to develop themselves on the one hand and pay debts on the other, between nations' capacity to invest in their people versus being able to pay back creditors. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about that statement, there's 2 very interesting aspects of that statement. The first is that he goes on, in terms of trying to remedy that situation, to evoke international and multinational financial institutions. The 2 that he names are the IMF and the World Bank. And anybody who knows anything about the IMF and the World Bank would know that it is in fact these multinational financial institutions that are responsible for creating the dichotomy between nations being able to invest in their people versus pay back creditors, because oftentimes these are the creditors, the IMF and the World Bank. These are the multinational financial institution controlled by nations such as the United States of America and the United Kingdom of Great Britain that create the dichotomy between development on the one hand and financing debt on the other. And in relation to the current moment, it is necessary to note that America has been responsible and complicit in ensuring that the nation of Haiti has been subject to that dichotomy since the year 1825. America, the US government, has supported France, the IMF, the World Bank, and its own financial institutions in ensuring that the nation of Haiti remains in a situation whereby they have to make decisions between paying off debtors, i.e. the French, i.e. the American government, i.e. American banks, i.e. the IMF and the World Bank, paying them off versus developing the nation, versus investing in the people of Haiti. So this, off the bat, is a statement of hypocrisy, brothers and sisters. But we could go on to the next video. Which includes a piece of the opening statement, by President Ruto.
Thank you, Mr. President, for inviting me to make this state visit to the United States. On behalf of the people and government of Kenya, I also take this opportunity to express my deep gratitude for the warm welcome we have received on our arrival and the excellent hospitality of the American people. My visit provides us, Mr. President, with the opportunity to celebrate 60 years of bilateral relations rooted on shared values of freedom, democracy, rule of law, equality, and inclusivity.
Shared values based upon freedom, democracy, rule of law, inclusivity, and etc., and etc., and etc. 60 years, President Ruto said, of shared values. Now, let's put this into context. This is why it's important to know history, brothers and sisters. This is why it's important to know history. Because Kenya as a nation becomes independent in the year 1963. And so I'm assuming that when President Ruto speaks of 60 years of, good relationships based upon shared values, he's referring to that period of time. Well, let's analyze what America was dealing with 60 years ago. 1963, brothers and sisters. Just 2 years earlier, America was complicit in the assassination of the first prime minister of the nation of Congo. It collaborated with the French and the Belgians and the United Nations and corrupted individuals within the nation of Congo to assassinate the democratically elected prime minister of the Congo, brothers and sisters, in the year 1961. Following this, they supported the people who murdered and assassinated Patrice Lumumba and secured their rulership over the nation of Congo. I'm referring to people like Joseph Kasavubu. I'm referring to people like Joseph Mobutu. I'm referring to people like Moise Tshombe, brothers and sisters, yeah? These are the people that the American government was supporting in the year 1961 through to 1963 when Kenya was made independent. And in the same year that Kenya was made independent, rebellions sprung up against these corrupted, tyrannical individuals, murderous individuals in the Congo government at the time. The Kwilu rebellion sprung up and the Simba rebellion sprung up to fight against these corrupted leaders who had been responsible for the assassination of the duly elected, the democratically elected prime minister of the Congo. And America, the American government, sent its army to occupy the Congo in defense of Kasavubu, in defense of Tshombe, and in defense of Mobutu. This is to say nothing of the crimes of America all over the rest of the African and the Caribbean world, brothers and sisters. To say nothing of their support, for example, for the wicked, brutal white minority rule, apartheid regime in South Africa. So I wonder if, when President Ruto said 60 years of beautiful relationship based upon shared values, if these are the values that he is referring to, and based upon the fact that Kenya seems to have made of itself a willing lapdog, a willing lackey, and a willing agent of American imperialism at this moment in relation to what they're referring to as the multinational security support mission going into Haiti, it would appear this is where my talk about, brothers and sisters. That's how it would appear. But let's go on to a question that was asked by one of the journalists in this press conference and President Joe Biden's response to this particular journalist.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two questions, if I may, on...
No, one.
I'm going to do my level best on Haiti and on Israel. Your administration went on a worldwide search for security forces, Beninese forces, Bangladeshi, Canadian, Chilean, any but American forces to stand up this multinational security support mission for Haiti before Kenya stood up to lead. Can you explain why it is that you believe, on the one hand, that this mission is so critical, and on the other, why it is that you have categorically ruled out contributing U.S. forces to this effort? Is it your goal to beat back Haiti's gangs or to contain them? And on Israel, does the United States...
One question. I'll answer your question.
Okay, yeah.
The question with regard to Haiti is, We concluded that for the United States to deploy forces in the hemisphere just raises all kinds of questions that can be easily misrepresented about what we're trying to do and be able to be used by those who disagree with us and against the interest of Haiti and the United States. So we set out to find a partner or partners who would lead that effort that we would participate in, not with American forces, but with supplies and making sure they have what they needed. And so, I'm very grateful for President Ruto's leadership here, multinational effort, but Kenya's willingness to really lead this matters. You're not the only country, but you're leading this effort. And there's going to be U.S. forces none on the ground. We're going to supply logistics, intelligence, and equipment. Matter of fact, some equipment has already arrived. And Kenya is stepping up with police, and other countries plan to do as well. The United States is going to support the collective effort here. And of course, Kenya won't be going it alone. We're working with Congress to provide $300 million to MSS mission and an additional $60 million for equipment assistance. And we've received and are continuing to bring major contributions from other partners in as well. President Ruto and I agree that Haitian people deserve better. They deserve peace and security, and I thank him for taking on this responsibility, but we have his back.
He thanks President Ruto for taking on this responsibility, but we, the United States government, has his back. So it seems, based upon the pronouncements of President Joe Biden, that it is clear that the US government has instituted this particular policy to remain one step removed from what is about to take place in Haiti. They want to maintain at least one step removal for plausible deniability from what is about to take place in Haiti, because they know they have a very bad reputation of criminality in Haiti going back at least 100 years. So they look for a lackey, a lapdog, a puppet to be able to take up the reins and lead the mission on their behalf. And Kenya raise up them hand and say, yeah, we will lead it on your behalf. And a number of Caribbean nations have vowed to support the mission. Previously, we have discussed military training being conducted by Canadians in Jamaica and other Caribbean islands, brothers and sisters. That is what is taking place here. The nation of Kenya and a number of Caribbean nations have chosen to make themselves stool pigeons and puppets for the interest of the American government, so that the American government can allow itself to remain at least one step removed from what is about to take place in Haiti. And I suspect that a part of the consideration here is that it's an election year in America, and President Joe Biden knows that American troops on the ground in Haiti shooting down Haitian people is not going to look good during an election year when he's campaigning and issues of foreign policy are central to the issues affecting the American people at the moment, brothers and sisters. If no one them the image there on the television screen. But let's look at a few other aspects of what President Joe Biden has said. Now, you may remember that the 300 million that he referred to, brothers and sisters, was previously announced by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken in that meeting, that godforsaken meeting that took place in Jamaica in March of 2024. Blinken also said, however, that 33 million has been designated, and let me quote the man properly, for support for health and food security. So we note the disparity between 300 million on the one hand as it relates to military aid and 33 million as it relates to food and health on the other hand, all right? So let's note that disparity, yeah? However, I'd be very interested to know how much it would cost for America to send 1,000 troops, of American troops, yeah? Because I suspect that it will be significantly more than $300 million. But let's look deeper into this 300 million figure. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, Haiti is among American agriculturalists and farmers' largest markets as an export destination, particularly for rice. 80% of all of Haiti's rice comes from America. And this was facilitated by the fact that the American government destroyed rice cultivation in Haiti and the agricultural sector in general. But that's another story for another time. But as a result of this, one among the largest markets being Haiti for rice export, America and American farmers earn annually in the last 2-3 years between $230 and $260 million on a yearly basis. So this 300 million that they're allocating for this multinational security support mission in Haiti, they're going to make back that money there in about a year's time. And that's to say nothing of all of the other industries that America is involved in as it relates to the Haitian market. Those are the levels upon which we need to understand this particular issue. And let me conclude by raising 2 points here, because 2 points that are very interesting to me coming out of this particular press conference. The first is that CARICOM was not mentioned once. The Caribbean community was not mentioned in the entirety of this particular press conference. And that is important because it is CARICOM that is attempting to convince the region of the Caribbean and its diaspora that it is in fact the leading force facilitating the Presidential Council. The Presidential Council that made being able to negotiate as a part of that council, yes, one of the clauses was you had to accept this multinational security support mission, brothers and sisters. And it has been said, you will note, that I myself interviewed our ambassador, David Commichon, and he stated that CARICOM is in fact leading this process in order to assist our people in Haiti. Well, why is it, brothers and sisters, if that is the case, that neither President Biden or President Ruto seem to be considering CARICOM's involvement in relation to their public pronouncement in such a high-profile press conference? That seems to be quite a stark omission, don't you think? And the second omission, brothers and sisters, appears to be the fact that in all of their deliberation and all of their pronouncements concerning addressing the issues of gangs in Haiti, none of these people were mentioned. None of these individuals, brothers and sisters, were mentioned. These are 8 of a number of millionaires and billionaires in Haiti, commonly and collectively referred to as the Haitian elite, or the elite in Haiti, or the oligarchs of Haiti, some of whom have been subject to sanctions by the Canadian government because they are known to be complicit in the importation and distribution of arms to the so-called gangs in Haiti. All of the arms in Haiti comes from America through Florida. Some of these individuals have businesses in Florida. Some of them live in Florida. And none of the conversation about tackling gangs and the so-called gang issue in Haiti seems to be directed towards addressing the flow of arms in Haiti and the distribution of arms in Haiti that has been facilitated by these individuals. No more sanctions, no arrests, no warrants for arrest, no charges, nothing. So how seriously can we take this multinational security support mission if it is going to deal with the symptom and not the cause? If it is going to deal with the window dressing and not the broke down window? Brothers and sisters, we have to understand Wagwan in this time. To say nothing of the fact, once again, that Kenya seems to have subverted the rulings of its own judiciary and acting against its own constitution in the deployment of 100 police officers to Haiti itself. A lot is going on, brothers and sisters, so do stay tuned for further analysis in our We Stand With Haiti series on the Presidential Council, on the Multinational Security Support Mission, and all other issues in relation to the situation in Haiti at the moment. As for us here at gotkushTV, we will continue to provide analysis from a Pan-African perspective because we stand with our people in Haiti and we will continue to do so. Bon combat, ayi bobo.